Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service on the last day of January 2020, and I'm today's host. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. Let's see. I wonder why the screen flashed. Let's start up on the Arctic coast. There's a wind chill warning out for the central and western Arctic coast for tonight and Tuesday, as well as a wind chill warning for the central interior there, Fairbanks, Tanana, the Bettles area, Koyukuk Valley, Upper Yukon Flats. And that's for tonight and tomorrow for wind chills of 60 to 70 degrees below zero there, minus 70 on the western central Arctic coast. And then a blizzard warning that's currently raging there over St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast. That's going to continue until, 6 p.m. Monday afternoon or Monday evening. So tonight through tomorrow for that area for wind for anywhere 2 to 4 inches of snow, winds gusting 65 miles an hour, whiteout conditions associated with that. And there's also a wind chill advisory out for the Susitna Valley. For tonight until noon Tuesday. So tonight, tomorrow night into Tuesday, wind chills 40 to 50 degrees below zero. In fact, all the remaining shaded areas up in the interior all the way to the eastern Arctic coast, across the eastern Brooks Range, that's wind chill advisories that are in full swing there for wind chills of running 40 to 50 below zero. In cases of the eastern Brooks Range, the Arctic coast, more possibly to 55 below zero. Otherwise, got winter weather advisories out for the northern panhandle for possible snow, 4 to 6 inches. Winter storm warning out for the southern southeast coast for 10 to 16 possible inches of snowfall. And let's see. Let me keep rolling here, and I should hit the satellites. Here we go. And looking at these, you can see the big storm coming into the western southwest Bering Sea, bringing warmer air with it. Good south to north flow there, a narrow ridge over the eastern Bering Sea, and then north to south flow, pulling very cold air down into the interior of Alaska today with well below zero temperatures, afternoon temperatures below zero, almost right out to the southwest coast. And winds, Cape Romanzoff kicking up 68 miles an hour there out of the east-northeast, and south winds for Unalaska and for Nikolsky gusted to about 65 miles per hour today, or actually close to 60, winds close to 50 miles an hour, Cold Bay from the east-southeast. So quite a range in winds from the south there, and then northerly winds on the increase over the interior. And even south-central Alaska, getting gusts to about 35 miles an hour in areas of Prince William Sound, and winds coming up for the next couple of days in the northern panhandle. And rolling this, keep moving here. Whoop, let me back it up. Okay, today's weather, Arctic high pressure in over the interior, ridging all the way down into Bristol Bay, and some snow extended southward with an upper level trough from the eastern Arctic coast, areas of light snow, but nothing heavy. Cold foot could have picked up 1 to 2 inches, and so up there over the Brooks Range, eastern Brooks Range in the area there, may have been an inch or so of snow, but lighter amounts all the way down. Gulkana had some light snow earlier today, as did Valdez, and a few flurries at Yakutat. Otherwise dry over the northern panhandle. Lingering showers down to the south, and you can see the warm air pushing northward of that warm front already past the Perbolofs. Snow blowing snow, St. Lawrence Island. For tonight, that continues and increases. Winds gusting 65 miles an hour and near whiteout conditions at times. Otherwise, periods of rain for the Perbolofs and windy, and could be a little moderate rain for the eastern Aleutians. The winds may be gusting 40 miles an hour. And tightening gradient across southern and western Alaska for increasing winds, supporting the wind chill warnings and advisories that are out. And that's going to start to slowly increase even over the northern panhandle and Canal Glacier Bay area. Weak low off the coast there, brings a chance of moisture in. Some of that overrunning that Arctic air could actually result in a general widespread snowfall, possibly, and that's why the winter storm warning for the north coast and the winter storm watch down to the south, and some advisories thrown in there as well. For Monday, we've got, or let's jump to Tuesday, still quite windy, cold over the interior, a little milder with less wind as that front pushes into the southwest interior, bringing snow with it across the Yukon Delta into the Kuskokwim Valley. Possibly into southern Cook Inlet could see some snow to Kodiak Island, might mix with rain there at lower elevations. Otherwise, storm warnings out for Lynn Canal, northern Panhandle, north winds, and dry conditions for the most part with less wind. Still a chance of some moisture over the southern southeast coast, mostly toward Dixon Entrance, but very windy with cold wind chills continuing over the interior there, but lighter winds for the Arctic coast and North Slope. Next warm front out west brings rain into the southwest Bering. Lows tonight, 30 to 45 below zero in the interior, below zero south of the Alaska Range, Cook Inlet, mid-teens to lower 30s for the Panhandle, above freezing for the Alaska Peninsula, and 20 to 30 below, and then morning lows there for the northern interior, about 35 to 45 below, and Monday afternoon highs well below zero up north of the Alaska Range, Copper River Basin about 5 below, but Tanana Valley 20 to 30 below for your highs, all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast. And a little milder on the west side, but still below zero, 5 for St. Lawrence Island, near 40 for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 40s on Alaska, and 20 to 40 for the Panhandle. And for the, let's jump to Tuesday morning lows. Again, 35 to 45 below, up over the eastern and northern interior areas, and anywhere from 10 to 30 for the southeast coast. And let's jump to the highs with only 8 seconds to go. Staying very cold eastern and northern interior and in the teens along the southwest coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather for Monday morning, we've got marginal VFR, eastern Beaufort Sea coast there, right on down to the eastern North Gulf coast, east of Cordova, Cape Yakataga. Maybe some IFR around Yakutat to Icy Bay, marginal VFR northern Panhandle, and VFR in the central southeast coast, and then back to marginal down to the south. Big band of IFR over the east central Bering Sea, trying to press in toward the coast, western Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutian, St. Lawrence Island. VFR central western interior, right on up to the eastern Arctic coast there, and North Slope, Kodiak Island, VFR. For the afternoon, that IFR zone does push onto the southwest coast there from Cape Newnan and along the Tuksuk Bay area there, covering Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, Pribilofs on down the Fox Islands and the western Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR into western Bristol Bay across Togiak Bay to St. Lawrence Island, and VFR, Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula. For a portion of the interior, but marginal VFR along and north of the eastern Alaska Range, cutting across looks like Fairbanks right on the edge there, up over the Yukon Flats, thinning out as you cross the Brooks Range to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast toward Barter Island. And marginal VFR for the Panhandle with areas of IFR, again around Yakutat and over the south central or southern third or quarter of the southeast coast, and a swath of VFR, Adak and Atka, back into the marginal VFR, southwest Bering, western Aleutians. And for Tuesday morning, marginal for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, IFR south side of the Alaska Peninsula, and from Dillingham, Togiak Bay, right up along the southwest coast, Nunivak Island, St. Matthew Island, to just south of, or the south shore there of St. Lawrence Island. VFR mostly in the interior, except off to the east, lingering marginal VFR, mid to upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, south across the eastern Copper River Basin, eastern North Gulf coast, all of the Panhandle marginal, and the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for the afternoon Tuesday, got IFR along and south of St. Lawrence Island, St. Matthew Island, northern Bering Sea, and north shore of Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta coast, Kuskokwim Bay, into Togiak, Dillingham, northeast Bristol Bay, Aleutian Range, Shelikof Strait, and Kodiak Island, all IFR. And IFR, another batch there pushing into the western Aleutians to about Kiska, otherwise marginal to maybe some areas of VFR for the central and eastern Aleutians, and marginal VFR holding over the eastern interior, some of that getting just south of the eastern Alaska Range there, and marginal for the Panhandle, otherwise VFR. And for Anaktuvik tomorrow, VFR. And then a little farther to the east, could be some marginal VFR to start the day for Adigan, but that'll become VFR into the afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill, another VFR day coming up, as well as for rainy and windy. And Isabel, VFR, and possible marginal VFR there in the northern entrance. Mentasta, same pattern, possible marginal VFR north entrance, otherwise VFR. And Tanita, VFR. Portage, same forecast, VFR. Chilcoot and White, marginal VFR. And for the freezing levels, at the surface, along the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula, east coast Kodiak Island, and then along the eastern coast on down the Panhandle. Push of warm air, 8,000 feet, pushes up across the Alaska Peninsula in the southern Bristol Bay, 2,000 feet, all the way up to St. Lawrence Island. Icing could be some considerable moderate rime icing on Alaska Island or the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. Maybe a few patches there for the southeast coast, but not too bad. Icing free in the interior and some icing threats out over the western central Aleutians. Jet stream, upper level low, cold upper low there just east of the border, say around coming down toward Dawson. Anyway, northerlies 100 to 135 knots there across Prince William Sound. Lighter for the Panhandle. South to north flow over the central Bering Sea, anywhere from 100 to 130 knots. And then at 9,000 feet south to north flow, a little farther to the east, looking at 50 to 70 knots, and then easterlies 40 to 50 knots central interior, northerlies 50 Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, 3,000 feet, 85 knot winds there, but that's west of St. Lawrence Island, but pretty brisk there, the western interior, 55 to 75 knots, a little quick there. And southern Cook Inlet, Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, northerlies 55 knots, as well as over the Yakutat area. Now we'll go into turbulence. Quite an area of moderate chop, especially for small aircraft below 6,000 feet. Southern Alaska from the northern Panhandle up to the northwest coast. Northern
You guys got everything tied down back there? Yeah. Yep. We're going through the lee of St. Elias, so there might be some turbulence.
Fasten seatbelt sign on.
Well, who am I to tell you what to do?
There are tens of thousands of glaciers in Alaska. Some stunning cliffhangers, others wide glaciers that come down to meet the ocean tides. Some, like this one we flew over in August, are easily visible from low Earth orbit and are mesmerizing from 1,000 feet above and have trees growing on top of their soil-laden boundaries. Those glaciers, although they represent only a fraction of the world's ice, are contributing much more than their share to sea level rise. Chris Larson and his colleagues have repeatedly measured 220 of them in a small single-engine otter, measuring their height with lasers and their depth with radar, and watching them change from season to season and year to year. But Alaskan glaciers are also different. We're only just figuring out how they all behave. Data from flights like these, part of NASA's Operation Icebridge, can help fill the gaps. Chris and radar specialist Martine Trufer are both from the University of Alaska Fairbanks and both seasoned Alaskan pilots. But they rely on their good friend and legendary bush pilot Paul Kloss and his 35,000 hours in the cockpit to fly the incredibly demanding flight lines the mission requires.
And does it help you guys being pilots too?
I would like to think so, but watching Paul
flying, seeing what he does, it's kind of like trying to learn quantum mechanics in kindergarten.
You know, I can fly my airplane around, but just seeing what Paul does in this extremely challenging environment in the mountains while trying to follow a specific flight line at a specific altitude above ground, negotiating winds, topography, maybe occasional low-level clouds that you have to get around, and just managing all that is just several levels above what I could do as a pilot.
Well, I think the first time I came here to this park, I was probably 4 years old with my father. I've been blessed to be able to fly in lots of places in the world, all over the place, actually, almost every continent. I guess I'm always looking for some place that might be better than this, but I haven't found it.
Paul's plane is about 60 years old and is the first single-engine otter ever retrofitted with a 1,000 horsepower engine, which makes takeoffs feel effortless and gives Paul the ability to negotiate wild terrain, which he certainly did during the first 2 incredible science flights of this campaign. And with sunny skies and relatively calm air, we covered 3 vastly different pieces of ice. While Paul fueled up the plane, Chris gave us a preview of the day's science and scenery.
So it has one of the greatest coastal reliefs anywhere in the world. So it's between the ocean and the summit of Mount St. Elias, which is 18,008 feet high. It's less than 10 miles. There's a stupendous amount of mountain right off the ocean. It's hard to beat it anywhere in the world. It might be the prettiest for me. It's absolutely stunning. From here in McCarthy, we'll cross one of the bigger precipitation gradients in Alaska too. Here it's about 10 inches of precipitation a year, and we'll go over to an area where it's on the order of 200 inches per year. So it's from one of the driest parts of Alaska to one of the wettest parts of Alaska in about 45 minutes flight time.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That's awesome. You want to do Tyndall next?
Sure, where you want?
If the winds are calm now, might as well grab it.
First, we came to the rugged landscape of Icy Bay, which not that long ago wasn't a bay at all. It was filled with ice. Tidewater glaciers in this region can make dramatic advances and retreats as they feed on high rates of snowfall and then retreat as they're melted by warm ocean waters. Like the Tyndall Glacier seen here, most of these glaciers have retreated dramatically over the last 100 years. But nearby Yahtzee Glacier, after years of retreat, is currently the most rapidly advancing glacier in Alaska. Overall, though, the Icebridge Alaska surveys, from the Denali region in the north to the Juneau ice field in the southeast, have documented pretty substantial thinning of glacial ice. Areas seen here in orange and red show between about 10 and 15 feet of thinning per year.
There's a nice waterfall up there from the hanging ice.
When we very first started profiling this, Paul, this gravel fan in the one in the valley next to it didn't exist.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at all the good landing spots here.
Yeah,
There's no place to land here before.
no, it was deep water.
After covering several of Icy Bay's glaciers, given that it was time for lunch, just like that, we landed in this unforgettable spot. Flying eastward, leaving Icy Bay behind, we came to the mighty Malaspina, one of the Earth's great examples of a Piedmont glacier that spills out like pancake batter onto a broad plain as it approaches the sea. It surges at uneven intervals, creating dramatic patterns on its surface as it distorts the moraines of rock and soil borne along by the glacier. The Malaspina is less dynamic than the Yahtzee and is only melting at about the average rate for Alaska, but that could change quickly.
It has the potential for being one of the bigger geographic evolutions in Alaska. Certainly My son will be able to witness some big geography changes there. There's potential for it being connected with the ocean through some narrow lagoons, estuaries, which would take a little bit of coastal erosion, but it's not too hard to imagine that where the Malaspina Glacier is now could become a large bay.
The data that Martine's radar provides could reveal how vulnerable the Malaspina is to melting by the nearby ocean. Here we see the radar returns from the surface of the glacier, and here is something that Chris's lasers can't see, the rocky bed of the glacier, giving us both clues as to what's happening under the ice, as well as a measurement of its thickness. Finally, we came to the Yakutat ice field, 300 square miles of absolutely doomed ice perched high in the mountains. Researchers even debate how this ice field came to be at all, since in its current configuration, it's hard to imagine how it could capture enough snow to form glacial ice. And so, even if the Arctic weren't warming faster than the rest of the planet, this area would be likely to melt within a century or two. But with many other glaciers, it's easier to see the connection between a warming planet and ice loss. Thanks to data from IceBridge and other surveys, we now have a good estimate of the current rate of loss from Alaskan glaciers, 75 gigatons a year. While airborne observations over Alaskan glaciers have provided a rich record of change in the area, those efforts are now augmented by NASA's newest ice measuring tool, ICESat-2. With 6 laser beams of its own, and orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes, the satellite will carry on the record of Alaskan change. For their part, Chris and his team will continue to do their surveys for at least the next 2 years, helping to validate the ICESat-2 data and make further detailed observations over the stunning glaciers of Alaska.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back to today's sea ice analysis. Showing ice back south of the forelands there for Cook Inlet, and looks like a shade more there on the south shore of Kamishak Bay. Otherwise, with the winds increasing from the east and then kind of going east-southeast later tonight and tomorrow, and then mostly even more southeast there from, say, Nunivak Island southward, the ice will actually kind of pull back to the north in that area and then kind of take off more of a drift to the west with those winds, say, for the area latitude Nunivak Island on up. And for the coastal water forecast, west-southwest 15 knots for the south coast, north coast, south 30 knots, and even farther to the northeast 35 for gale warnings with 9-foot seas. High-end gale warnings, full gales, Lynn Canal, north 45 knots, sustained 8-foot seas, and 25 knots small craft advisory winds with gale force gusts of 40 knots, Stevens Passage, southeast 20 for Clarence Strait. Those will become northwest 20 for Clarence Strait on Tuesday, and gale warnings for the Stevens Passage area, north sustained 35 knots, storm warnings now for Tuesday. Lynn Canal, north sustained 50 knots, 10-foot seas, north winds 20 knots on the south coast, and north-northeast 30 to 35 knots for the north coast with 8 to 9-foot seas. Prince William Sound, gale warnings tomorrow. Sustained north 35 knots, definitely higher gusts out of the western and northern bays, much like you saw today, with 9-foot seas. And we've got 30-knot small craft advisory level winds for the North Gulf Coast with 55 to 60-knot winds blowing gusts coming out of the Copper River Delta. Barren Islands, north 30, gale warnings. Kamishak Bay, northeast 35. Southern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, northeast at 30. And 20 to 30-knot winds for northern Cook Inlet from the north. Those will fall back to 15 knots from the northeast for northern Cook Inlet, but southern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, northeast 30 knots. Gale warnings, Kamishak Bay, northeast 35 knots, east 20 knots for the Barren Islands, and northeast 15 to 20 for the North Gulf Coast. Winds come down to 20 knots from the northeast for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, west side there along, say, northwest 25, small craft advisories, and 7-foot seas. Shelikof Strait, northeast 30 knots. And southeast winds 30 to 35 knots for the Alaska Peninsula. The gale warnings on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, northeast 30 knots for Bristol Bay. Those will turn around to the south at 25 knots with 5-foot seas for Bristol Bay. The Alaska Peninsula, A milder southwest breeze at 15 to 20 knots with 8 to 14 foot seas, and west 20 knots at Ganacta Castle Cape, northeast 30 knots Shelikof Strait, and east 20 knots for the east side of Kodiak Island. Unalaska Island, gale warnings tomorrow. South 35 knots, and then west 15 for Unmak Island, and southwest 20 for Adak-Anatka. Small craft advisories from Amchitka to Shemya for southwest 25 to 30 knots. And for Tuesday, look for south 30 knots from Shemya to Kiska. Gale warnings for Amchitka Island and the Adak-Atka area for south to southwest winds 35 knots. And Unmak Island, southwest 25, Unalaska Island 15 to 20 from the southwest. Gale warnings for the southwest coast tomorrow, east 35 knots, southeast 40 knots for St. Matthew Island, east 45 knots, just under storm force for St. Lawrence Island, east 40 knots for Norton Sound, southeast 30 for the Pribilofs. On Tuesday, east winds 40 knots, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, and coming under gale force for the Yukon Delta area, southeast at 30, but still brisk wind advisories. South 25 for the Kuskokwim Delta coast, winds coming down to 20 knots from the southwest for the Pribilofs, and up on the Arctic coast. North to kind of a variable to north wind pattern there, pretty light 10 knots for the central and east side, but brisk wind advisories 30 knots, Point Lay down to Cape Thompson, gale warnings Cape Thompson to Wales, east 35. And 40 knot winds coming up even a little higher, shading up 5 more knots to that from Wales to Cape Thompson. East 40 knots, gale warnings from Cape Thompson up to about, say, Point Lay for 35 knot winds out of the east. And then the central and east side, northeast at 15. For tonight, blowing snow continues St. Lawrence Island, winter storm warning there. Tonight into tomorrow, and wind chill warnings, a big chunk of the central interior as well as the western Arctic coast. Look for wind chills 70 below zero, and just about everywhere else in the interior has wind chill advisories out, including the Susitna Valley for wind chills 40 to 50 below, and Copper River Basin, and then a winter storm warning there for the coast of the Panhandle. And then for Monday, again, snow over the Panhandle. Winter storm watch, possible heavy snow for the southern areas, and strong winds cover in the eastern interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal, pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.